name's Kirsten. This is the Paper Knits Podcast, episode number 27. I'm from Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, and here I talk about mostly my knitting. I have also an exciting weaving project to share with you today, though finally. I've been saying for a couple of podcast episodes that I was like, oh, I'm going to finish this project, and then I never did. I finished it! Yay! So I'm really excited to share that with you. And it's my third weaving project on my floor loom that I got in the spring. And I'm very excited about it. So I'm going to show that off to you today. I've got a finished object that I will show you that I knit in a day and a half. You'll see why. And I've done lots of knitting on my Affric test knit. So I'll show that off. And I also have a giveaway at the end because I went to a Yarny event this week and I picked up some stuff that I decided I wanted to share with you guys. So let's get into it. I'm wearing my ranunculus that I knit last summer. This was knit in a merino linen yarn from the company's now called Fantasy Fiber Co. They're local to me in Calgary. And this was the yarn that I got this yarn years ago, but it was part of her like a Lord of the Rings collection that she did. And so this yarn color was called If I Take One More Step. Sam has a special place in my heart. And so I had to buy it obviously when I saw it. And yeah, I knit this last summer for Knit City Calgary. And I'm also wearing a skirt that I sewed like a few years ago. It's the pocket skirt by Peppermint Magazine. And with like very voluminous pockets. I need to make a couple alterations on it, and so I don't wear it a ton, but it's fine. It's gotten enough use that I feel happy about having made it. I sewed it a couple years ago. I was wearing pajamas, 15 minutes ago, but not gonna, well, one time I did wear pajamas on my podcast, but that was because it went with my outfit, my knitting outfit. It's nice to sometimes like put on real clothes and like do my makeup and whatever. It's not quite such of a deal now for me to do my hair, so that's kind of nice, but I did kind of like fix the bedhead. So anyways, that's what I'm wearing today. Last time I showed you my update about my half and half triangles wrap, and I have knit now what actually feels like a lot on it. Like at the time I was like, wow, I'm going so fast, it's almost done. Now I feel like it's still not almost done, but I'm into my second ball of yarn. So I've used up my first skein of the light purple and I am into the second skein. It is ginormous. It's so big. And I still have quite a bit to do because each row gets longer and longer. And so actually I'm going to calculate how many stitches this is. And I wanted to calculate how many stitches I have left. Because if it's like every other row you add an extra stitch, I could like figure out exactly how many stitches I need to knit. I'm just curious. Like, I don't know why, maybe that feels like self-sabotage or something to realize like how much I have left, but I'm just curious. So yes, this is my half and half triangles wrap by Purl Soho using linen quill from Purl Soho. And this was my Christmas yarn this year. But yeah, it's coming along. And I'm so excited to have this. Like, I'm feeling motivated again to knit it. It's just a lot of knitting. But I'm feeling motivated again because I really am looking forward to having this. And it's so big. I'm just going to check my gauge quick because I haven't actually done that. And I'm curious because I didn't swatch for it. I will have plenty of yarn. I just realized like, oh, that's dangerous. I'm not getting more yarn, but I will have enough because I had this much left over from the dark purple side. So I should have that same amount for the light purple side. 19 stitches or so. And I wonder what the gauge is supposed to be. 24 stitches. Interesting. Okay, so mine is way bigger than it's supposed to be. That's fine. I feel like it's going to be more like a blanket, which also like great. Okay, I knit a blanket. That's lovely. It'll be a big square blanket, but that's okay. Let's do a little bit of inaccurate measuring here. It's all garter, very squishy, It is 60 inches wide, or even a little bit more than that, but that's as big as my tape measure goes. So the measurements, I'm doing the bigger size. There's like a big and bigger. And the measurements that they give are, for the larger size, blocked is 43 inches by 43 inches, 61 inches along the diagonal. Mine is 60 inches along the length / also width. And so we could also do some math and figure out the hypotenuse of that triangle to figure out what the wingspan of this would be. It's big. This is what I'm learning. I'm learning this in real time with you because I didn't look this up beforehand. So yeah, it's fine. It's the same number of stitches that it would have been. So it's not like I'm knitting more stitches. I cast on the right number of stitches. It's just like my end product is going to be bigger than it was supposed to be. It's fine. Part of when I was working on this, when I needed something very easy to be working on, was our school parent council organization has part of like their major fundraiser every 2 years is that they work a casino shift. I don't know if this is a thing everywhere, but it's like I think it's primarily with like nonprofit organizations. I don't know what the requirements are. You have to like apply to be able to get this funding from our like gaming commission, and you have to get you're given 2 days and you have to find volunteers to fill in all of these shifts at the casino. So it's like one of the like main like casinos in Edmonton. It's like a real casino, right? This isn't like a oh, fun casino night fundraiser thing. This is like at the casino. That's the busy one in Edmonton. And you have to work a shift. And so you're like working in the count room, or you're like running chips to the tables, or you're, I don't know what else. And so I've done it a couple of times for a couple different organizations. I did it the last time our school had it. My husband and I signed up again this year. They were desperate for people because it's the middle of the week. They're like, the shifts are either from like 9 till 6, like 9 a.m. till 6 p.m. or 6 p.m. to like 4 a.m. or mine, which was 11 p.m. till 4 a.m. And so it's like not fun, whatever. But yes, the organization can like fill these roles, and then you get money back as like a fundraiser. And it's like tens of thousands of dollars that you get back. And there's like specific rules about what you can spend it on and all these things. Anyways, I don't know if I explained that very well, but that's what I was doing last week, one evening. I showed up at the casino for 11 p.m. and I was in the count room, but mostly I sat in the break room, and then twice they'd grab us to go like back into like through the locked doors to like count all the money. But otherwise I was just sitting there in the middle of the night knitting. I brought this, my big giant thing. This is what I brought. And I brought my other project that I finished in a day and a half, which I will show you next. So anyways, that was a long story to tell you about why I was knitting on this. But yes, my husband had done the shift the night before. He did like a 6 p.m. and onwards one. My kids went to Grandma and Grandpa's house last week for a visit, and that meant that I did not have to parent the next day after getting home at 3:30 in the morning. I didn't have to work right till 4 a.m. I got home at like 3:30 in the morning and slept in. But it took me days to recover. Like, I feel like 4 days to recover. What day is it today? Yeah, it took me 4 days to recover. Today I feel normal again. So it was fine. It's fine. It's a lot. It's also like how our school buys computers for the classrooms. It's like that the parent council often uses that money. They're separate from the school entity. The parent council of the school will use this money to like, yeah, pay for computers, like got a new playground for the school a few years ago. Does a lot of the like, yeah, technological upgrades and stuff for the school, whatever. It's fine. I don't think that that's how the system should work. I think that those things should be funded properly by the government, alongside also like properly funding teachers and educational assistants and all that. It's this whole thing. There's probably going to be a strike in the fall of teachers because things are not super great right now in Alberta, in our education system, or in our medical system, or in our housing situation, or in lots of things, because our government is kind of sketchy, Alberta government. So anyways, here's my finished object that I have to show you that I knit in a day and a half. This is called the Mala scarf, and this was a little quick test knit that I did for the Bluebird box. This is a pattern that's going to come out with Hobby, I think it's Hobby, but people say Hobie, I don't know, and in the fall, and it's based off of one of her sweater patterns. I didn't choose a yarn that really highlights it in the best way, but it's a sport weight little scarf, and I knit mine in John Urban Yarnadelic in the colorway La Di Da, Body-Da, I think is Body-Da, which is, this is what it looks like. That might show up a little bit better. And it's just a cute little scarf. I've knit a couple of these before, but never for myself. And so now I have one, and it was really nice. It was very nice to knit. I made there's 3 sizes, like a small, medium, large kind of thing for like just, they're all the same width, but then like how long they are is different. And mine's the medium. And it like ended up being like a touch shorter than it was supposed to be because of how, like when I blocked it, it was like the right size, and then it just like, it went a little bit when I unpinned it. But I think it works. Like I can do one little, you know, half knot there, half hitch, is that what that's called? And we'll see if I don't know if I'm a tiny scarf person, but I like the vibe of them, and so we'll see if I wear it this fall. So yeah, it's all over lace and with a twisted stitch, like, you know, like the twisted cable thing. So it's like a 1x1 cable, but you just like work it as a twist. I started swatching, realized that me doing those little like 1x1s I was doing them like they looked messy and not very good. And so I like found a different way to do them. And then it was like no problem at all. And so then I just cast on, and it started going really quickly. So it's like, it was all nicely charted. And so I could just like go line by line. I like put my chart into Knit Companion and just like line by line showed, okay, here's your increases. Like it wasn't just like increase in pattern. It like showed you what the pattern was. So that's just kind of nice. And I found like, even though I haven't done a lot of lace, there's a little bit of lace in the ranunculus. The first time I knit it, I completely messed it up. I haven't actually done a lot of lace knitting. It's not something that I find I can read very well because I just don't have practice doing it. And there was something really nice about having every stitch, it telling me what to do, which, you know, if I'm knitting stockinette, like that's also the case, right? Like I know exactly every single stitch what I'm supposed to do. I don't have to think about it. But I don't know why. It was something nice about, maybe because it was engaging, but it wasn't hard. It kept me interested, and I like wanted to keep going and going, which is why I finished it so quickly. But it wasn't something that was like tough, I guess. Thankfully, I didn't make any mistakes in it because I did a couple times, but I just had to like take back a little bit on that same row. I didn't like mess up any of my, you know, where my yarn over was or something and like mess up the pattern. Because that would have been more complicated if I was having to like fix lace. But it's something I want to learn how to do better. So I feel like this was a good little sampler project for that, maybe. And yeah, it was lovely. So I cast this on Wednesday morning. I brought this to the casino and knit on it until our like first like go to count all the money. And then when I came back from doing that, and then by that point it was like 1:30 in the morning, and I was like, I don't think this is a good idea to like be knitting on lace that I had to pay attention to while there's like people talking and whatever. And so I put that away and I grabbed this one. But then yeah, the next morning then, after I slept in until like 11:30, then I picked this back up again and like finished it up, and then it was done. Yeah, there's just a nice quick little project. I believe it comes out in September. It's sport weight. Mine use 44 grams of yarn, and so I have this full skein minus a swatch on my board because I'd swatched this for a project last year that I didn't end up using it for. This was one time when I was smart where I just bought one skein of yarn to swatch with before buying the entire sweater's quantity, and then finding out that it didn't work for that project. So I just had this one this one little skein. So it felt like I was using up some stash, I guess, to just like, which is why I really like this color actually. But it doesn't necessarily show off the stitch pattern as best as it could. But I like it. So yeah, we'll see. I think I need to wash it again. I put too much, I like, you know, added my wool wash and I think I added too much. And it was like really bubbly. And so I did rinse it, but I don't think I rinsed it quite enough. I can almost like, it feels like it's soapy, which I feel like wool wash isn't supposed to do that, you know, but I'm going to soak it again. Yeah, that's my random finished object. Speaking of washing yarn, let me show you the other thing that I've been working on. So a few episodes ago, I went through all of my languishing whips, trying to figure out what I was going to do with all of them. One of them was a cable blanket project that I had started. It was going to be my like grief project. And then I was like, just kidding, I'm not enjoying this. And so I stopped doing it for that and did a different project as my grief project. But this is called Norah's Vintage Afghan by Norah. It's a bunch of cable squares that you knit separately and then you seam them all together. And I had done 3 of these purpley ones and 1 light blue one, which I ripped out because I decided it looked anatomical. When I was pulling out all my languishing whips, trying to decide if I was going to frog or finish them, I thought, hey, actually, you know what? I think I'm going to knit 1 more purple one and then seam these together and it can be like a pillow cover. I don't know why I was feeling motivated a couple weeks ago to cast on my next one. And so I made this one. I feel like it coordinated well with this one. And then these two kind of coordinate together. There was 24 blocks maybe. And from other people who've knit this and made really nice Ravelry project pages and numbered all of their squares, that's how I figured out which ones I wanted to knit, because in the pattern, like you have all the charts, but it's not necessary. I can't necessarily like look at, you know, this much of a cable repeat and then figure out what the whole thing is going to look like. I was looking through a bunch of people's pictures on Ravelry to figure out which ones I wanted to do. Started with one initially that I changed my mind about and so ripped it back and then did this one, but it's kind of X's and O's, which I kind of like the look of. And so I'll do, you know, like these two together. Ready? Okay. Like this, and then like this, and then like this is my plan. In the blanket pattern, sewn together, like turned. Every other one is turned, but so I don't know if I will do that or not. Anyways, so yeah, when I was knitting these the first time around 2 years ago, my hands turned color from the yarn while I was knitting it. This is River City Yarns Epic, which is the same yarn that I just knit my Traveling Boulevardier in, obviously in a different color. And this one bleeds a lot. Like my hands were purple and I had blocked one of them at the time, like after when I was knitting on it the first go around, and it bled so much. And honestly, that's part of why I was like, I don't want to do this anymore, because my other colors were a light gray, a kind of lightish blue, and like a camel color, which like, honestly, I'm like, I don't think I I wouldn't have liked them all together anyways. I was making do with like the colors that were available. This one was kind of the odd one out from those other ones. But I was like, I don't want this to bleed all over those other yarns. And so when I saw how much it bled, I was like, oh, so that's part of why this project had gotten put aside, because I just like didn't know what I wanted to do with it. So I finished this one and then blocked all of them. And it was this whole saga. I could not believe how much they bled. Like it was so much dye coming out of them. And like it made sense with just using the yarn, like how purple my hands turned. But I decided to do a little science experiment and I documented it on my Instagram and then I saved it as a highlight, because even if nobody else really cared about it, I cared about it a lot. And so if you are curious about my saga of my science experiment, I saved it as a highlight on my Instagram. because I took little snippets of yarn. Well, first I did little like butterflies of yarn. I did like plain water plus wool wash, plain water plus vinegar, plain water plus wool wash plus vinegar, because vinegar is supposed to help set the dye. And I'm so glad that I tested to see what would happen with and without the wool wash, because the ones that I had the wool wash in, the moment the yarn touched the water, it bled. And the other ones took a while for it to like seep out. So then I was like, what's going on? Like, there must be something about the wool wash itself that's like making it bleed more. And so then I was like, okay, so then I had to get a different wool wash. So I compared 2 different wool washes to see. The first one I had used had definitely like made it like bleed immediately. And the second one, like it eventually got to that same point of like the amount it looked like in the water, but it took longer. And then I did an experiment. The vinegar didn't really make much of a difference, but I just had guessed how much vinegar to add. And so then I looked up a little bit more online about like how much. And like I've heard before, you probably have too, of like, oh, if your yarn is bleeding, like add a splash of vinegar when you wash it. No, you need like 50% vinegar for it to set the dye. And so the other option is using citric acid, which is normally what a yarn dyer would be using. I don't know what this is commercial yarn, so I don't know actually what process they would be using, but if you have like a hand dyed skein of yarn, they'd be using citric acid to help set the dye. They're acid dyes, like they need that acid in order to react with the fiber. So you can use vinegar then at home if you don't have citric acid to like help reset the dye. But yeah, you need 50% vinegar. And so I did a little like titration of like different amounts of vinegar, and then eventually got up to that 50%, and it still bled a little bit, but I got to the point where I did not have any more. This is still in my sample yarn. I like made new little, well, actually that's a lie. Like I said, I started with little butterflies, and then I was like, uh-oh, this is using up too much yarn if I have to do all these more tests. So then I just like cut a couple inches of yarn and like had them in my little like kitchen bowls. Yeah, got up to that 50%, finally got it to the point where I was not getting any more dye bleeding out, and then I went and washed these. So I had already put them into wool wash, and I shouldn't have. I should have done vinegar first, I think, but I didn't know that at the time. And so I had already put them into wool wash. And then we didn't have that much vinegar left. Like we had a big jug of vinegar and there was like this much left. And so I just like measured out what we had, added that same amount of water, and like they just had like a very shallow bath in vinegar water all night long. And then in the morning they were clear. There's like a touch of dye in the water, but then when I rinsed them, like nothing. And so if I think I might still do this, but I think what I'm going to do, I want to wash, I'll take one of them, wash it again, just normal with like water and wool wash, and see if the dye comes out again. Because if it has actually set the dye completely, then that's great. Next time I go to wash it, it won't be such a saga. Like if I ever need to wash the finished project, like I want to be able to wash it without having to worry about it. I want to be able to like curl up with my pillow without getting purple cables on my face. And so, but I just didn't feel like doing that right then. And so I pinned them out, tried to get them to about the same size. One thing that was interesting with the different cables is like all of them were very different sizes just from knitting. And like this one was like much like more narrow. And so I had to like really pin it out to try and get them all to the same size. This one was like quite wide already. And the pattern does adjust for the change in gauge between the like cast on and then the cable. So you have all of them have an increase row before the cable section, because the cables tend to like pull in more. But yeah, they're all a little bit different, right? They all have different amount of like, you know, pulling in. So, but also, and even just as I pulled them out, they smell like vinegar. So I thought I'd rinsed them really well. Obviously I didn't rinse them well enough. And then when I had them pinned out, they took forever to dry. And when I took my pins out, all of my pins were rusty. And so I have what's the brand? Blocking pins, you know, that have like a bunch of pins on them. Those ones were fine. But because I had to block them so aggressively, I didn't have enough of those. I only have one set. And I couldn't find my other blocking pins I usually use, although maybe those would have rusted too. I used my sewing pins and they got all rusty. And so there's rust marks on my blocking mats. Entire metal of the pin is rusty. There will be rust in all the edges of these ones which I was like, fine, like whatever, it doesn't matter. But I wonder if it was from the vinegar. And so if I hadn't rinsed it out enough, if like, yeah, they definitely smell like vinegar. So yes, that was my big saga, which honestly I loved. Like I said on my Instagram, like, see, my 2 science degrees aren't going to waste. I could use them to do little chemistry experiments in my kitchen with my yarn. I was then feeling discouraged because I have to sew these together and I have to figure out what I want to do for the back of the pillow. I have 1.5 skeins of this left. I think that's all left. I don't want to sew these together with new yarn and then for that yarn to just bleed. Like it bled so much. But I decided I'm gonna, they come in like these kind of shape. But I'm gonna put it onto my skein winder, put it into a hank, and then wash that. Set that with vinegar in the hopes that then when I go to use a strand of it to sew these together, or if I decide to knit, I'm thinking maybe just knitting like a garter, like back panel for the pillow, that it won't make my hands purple. It won't bleed like crazy when I wash it because the yarn will have already been set. That is my hope. As I was sharing about this on my Instagram, Zoe from Woolerton Estate Yarn messaged me and was giving me the inside scoop about dyeing yarn. And it was so helpful and so interesting. And they just, you know, that's their job. That's like, you know, their hand dyeing yarn business. And so, yeah, they were sharing about like certain dye, certain colors, especially reds are like, they just bleed. Like that's just how it is. And they sent me a couple of pictures of one of the yarns that they were dyeing then and like what it looked like in the tub of like the dye bleeding, what the end color looks like. They're talking about different yarn bases and how like the one of them was, it was like a blend of wool and alpaca and cotton, I want to say. And the cotton doesn't react with acid dyes, but it like, I think it sounded like maybe it soaks up dye, but it doesn't hold on to the dye. And so then when you're washing it, then you have to wash all of that out of the cotton portion of the yarn. And so it takes forever to wash it. Another thing that they mentioned was about pre-washing the yarn. So when they like get the yarn, you know, in bulk, just like the bare yarn from their supplier, but then like washing it ahead of time because there can be so much like, you know, leftover stuff from the processing process, and that can affect then how the dye takes and whatever. It was super interesting, and so I really appreciated they just like, I just kept like giving them more questions and then they kept just answering more of my questions. I really appreciated it. So yeah, I haven't gone to work with their yarn before. There were some at the Yarn Divas, which is the store that a couple episodes ago I was talking about that just closed down in the Edmonton area, and they carried Woolerton Estate. They have a lot of different interesting yarn bases. Anyways, go check them out. Yeah, that's this project. So this will probably get put away again. You know what? I need to wash these again anyways because how much they smell like vinegar. So even if I don't feel like it, I'm going to have to do it and then reblock them. But maybe I won't do them all at once because that was a lot to pin them all out. But I also want them to be all the same size. So that's why I pinned them all and I like measured them all out. Anyways, okay. I've been feeling motivated to get yarn out of my stash. And so that was part of why I wanted to get this done. So I'm one step closer, but then it took a big detour into like dealing with bleeding yarn. So, okay, what's next? Okay, I had to stop because my battery ran out of my camera. And so I took a break, charged my camera, came back, started recording again. Camera battery immediately ran out. I had been searching for my extra battery, couldn't find it before, got so annoyed when my battery died the second time that I went searching a bit harder, found my battery, double checked to see what I had just said in the end of my last bit, and the sound hadn't worked. And so good thing I did check. Maybe it was good that my battery died because otherwise I would have just kept talking and the sound wasn't working. So One time I recorded a podcast all in slow motion. Was it slow motion or was it 2x speed? One of the two. And didn't realize it till obviously I went to go edit it. And then just like, it was useless. Technology sometimes. It's working now. If every like 5 minutes my camera's in a different spot or like my lighting is different, that's what's going on. So I had been talking about my Affric pullover. I will tell you about it again. My Affric sweater, which is a test knit that I'm doing for Rebecca Clow of the Crayabea. And I have knit quite a bit of this in the last couple of weeks. And part of that is because it's like 17 stitches and it's like good potato chippy color work. And so I've just been like, oh, let's like knit a little bit more. Oh, I'll just like knit till I get to that next color work section. And like, oh, well, I'll just get to the next part of the color work. And oh, well, I basically done that. I'll just like keep going. It's like it's been keeping me very hooked on it. And so that's been nice. Oh, I'm gonna have mohair flying everywhere. And I'm almost done the bottom ribbing. And then I can continue onward. So I was almost losing my sleeve stitches there. Let's fix that. How's that one? That one's fine. I'm sure you can see that my gauge is weird. I won't go into it all again. I talked about it at length last time. I did a lot of swatches for this. I had a really hard time getting gauge. And my gauge is all weird. So I needed to go up one more needle size still for my color work. And you can see like every time there's like band of color work, band of stockinette. I'm going down a needle size for the stockinette section, but obviously either needed to go up another needle size for the color work or down another needle size for the plain sections because it's all bubbly and weird. And I'm really hoping that it blocks out, and I think it will. I have high hopes, but I need to decide for the sleeves if I am going to change needle sizes for the sleeves. You know how, like, I feel like Andrew Mowry often recommends going up a needle size on sleeves because when we are knitting like that small circumference, we tend to knit tighter. And so if my color work sections are already too tight, and then if I'm working on a small circumference, if they're even tighter, then maybe I should go up a needle size. But I don't think I have the next needle size, which is why I chose this one that I did. I mean, it was fine. I had gotten gauge in my swatch. It's fine. But I think I have another like month still for this test knit, and so I'm not feeling like I'm in a hurry about it. I'm gonna finish the bottom ribbing. I can think about what I want to do for the sleeves, and I don't want like bubbly sleeves. So maybe I should, well, what I should do is maybe block it. But I'm not gonna do that because that's such a pain to block partway through the project and then like have to wait multiple days for it to dry. But I could steam block it. Maybe I'll just give it a good steam. See what happens. So anyways, that's coming along. I'm still like, I'm really enjoying my colors and really enjoying the fabric that it's making. It's like quite a heavy sweater to be knitting in summer, but yes, I'm really enjoying it. So I'm really looking forward to wearing that this fall / winter. It will definitely be a winter sweater. And I have another random cast on to show you. So a giant project that I very spontaneously decided to start knitting, which is a blanket. I already have a blanket on the go, but obviously I need another one. And what the main motivator for this one was is that I have been reorganizing my knitting room, which is like a forever long process, but a little bit more this time because I got a new shelf, and so I was putting all my stuff onto my new shelf. But I had a whole bunch of single skeins of DK weight yarn and decided of like superwash merino nylon, and so decided that they should become a blanket. And so I looked through a bunch of different options and settled on, it's called the Brioche Chevron blanket by Stephen West. It's brioche and then makes a chevron shape. He's got a few different patterns that kind of use that same vibe. And so some of them I had more than one skein of. These are obviously not what I'm using at the exact moment. So Frankie Gray Fibers, DK in Phantom, and then Sassy Strings in Antique Rose. And both of these are ones that I had bought when I was making my Instinct Crush. and I couldn't decide on my like final contrast color. And so I had bought this initially. The rest of it is Frankie Gray. And then I didn't like it. It was too high contrast. And so then I had picked up this at a yarn show and it also felt not quite right. And so then I ended up getting a completely different vibe and used this for my instant crush. This is what's left over. Anyway, so I have 2 of each of these. And then I have the Antique Rose, and this is called Backcountry Sunrise, and then this one is called Steel Harbor. We're all for like from the same collection from Sassy Strings. Like they all look really nicely together. This one's actually worsted, but it's gonna be fine. And I have a couple other ones. I'm gonna like fade them all together, and so that's the plan, that's the vision. And because it's 2-color brioche, I can just like change one color at a time, and I think it'll kind of go like, it'll start from this like light gray and light pink and move towards either, I think dark blue and dark purple will be my like end goal. So this will be forever. This project will take me forever, but I really like the rhythm of brioche, and once I figured out all of the like increases and decreases, and I can like see now where they need to be so I don't have to count. So like that was nice. I did pull out my like old like OG knitting needles. These are Knit Picks interchangeable needles that my husband got me when I was like very first learning to knit. You know what, now I mostly use ChowGoo, but I didn't want to have my ChowGoo needles taken up forever on this big project, and so I pulled out my Knit Picks ones. So this will be a very slow going one, but like I said, I've been feeling motivated to like get some yarn out of my stash, and this is, I feel like a blanket is a good way to do that. So that'll just be a slow over time project. So that's just fine. That is all of my knitting updates. Let me show you the giveaway yarn, and then I'll show you my tea towels. Let's do that. So this past week, I went to an event at the Fiber Nook, one of my local yarn stores, and they were hosting Anna Hunter, who is a farmer and I would say wool advocate from Manitoba. And so she owns Long Way Homestead, and she just came out with a book called The True Cost of Wool. Ta-da! And she was doing a little book tour. And so she did 3 different nights here in Edmonton. She was in Calgary now the last couple of days. I'm not sure if she has any other stops, like as she kind of like makes her way back to Manitoba. She just came out with this book. This is her other book called Sheep, Shepherd and Land, and Stories of Sheep Farmers Reinvigorating Canadian Wool. And so this one goes through like some different like small sheep farmers throughout Canada and shares some stories about them. This one is the subtitle is A Vision for Revitalizing the Canadian Industry. And so she shared a little bit about just kind of like the history of the Canadian wool industry, and also like where we're at right now, how much wool is produced currently in Canada, how much of that gets shipped overseas. 90% of the yarn that we would be able to purchase to knit with in Canada is not from Canada. It's, you know, it's imported from like the global market. And so Anna's really passionate about revitalizing the Canadian wool industry. And I've heard her speak before. She's very passionate about this and is very inspiring, and was really like enjoyable to listen to. So she shared kind of a bit of background about her book, about what's in the book, about kind of like her history of, she used to own a yarn store in Vancouver, and then her family moved to Manitoba. They bought land. She has a flock, and then she also has a mini mill and processes other farm wool, and has also been advocating for using wool pellets. I don't know if you've seen those. It's like uses waste wool, like dirty wool and stuff. It compresses them into these pellets that then you put in your garden, and they're good for, it's kind of like a natural fertilizer. They help with water retention. She's been kind of working with the city of Winnipeg to do this pilot program to like get them to be using these wool pellets in like city garden beds and stuff, and it's like been going well. Yeah, talking about like the different carbon footprint of livestock, and the ways that something like sheep take carbon out of the environment and turned it into wool. Wool as like climate action. And yeah, I don't know. I find her really fascinating, and I cannot save the Canadian wool industry. I can support Canadian farmers and Canadian wool producers, and it like has a special place in my heart to like be able to use local wool. And we like, there's a fairly large woolen mill here in Alberta. I feel lucky that I get to be able to access those things. One of the other things she talks about is just like the cost of like raising sheep, and like what is the like, how much does it cost per year to like keep a sheep alive? Here in industry, like wool is worth like hardly anything. And Canada doesn't have enough manufacturing capabilities in order to process all the wool that is produced here anyways. Farmers are not getting paid hardly anything for their fleeces. Lots of farmers, like they have to pay more to the shearer to come and shear their flock than what they could ever sell the wool for. And so she is trying to bring that value back to the wool that's already being produced here. Most of the sheep in Canada are meat sheep. Some of that fleece can be usable for us as like hand knitters. That also can be used in like commercial processes, but mostly it's just like a waste product for the farmers. And so being able to find ways to like add value back to that. One of those things with the wool pellets. Anyways, I haven't read the book yet, but I'm looking forward to doing that. So I went to this talk with her. This was the day after my casino night. That was my big event. Can you tell? It's in every one of my stories. It was that evening. And so I like had my super late night. The next evening was when I went to this. So by the end of the evening, I was like, could barely form a sentence together, but it was fine. I was feeling energized by like, yeah, Canadian wool. So very quickly then, as Anna was talking, I decided I'm going to buy a book for myself and some yarn for myself. And I'm going to buy a book and some yarn to give away. And so I did that. So I have a copy for me and a copy for one of you, a signed copy, and also some yarn. One of the products that Long Way Homestead sells is you can do like a breed of the month club. It's either yarn or fiber, and you can like test out some different different sheep breeds, right? And then it comes with information about different things about the sheep itself, and then also what to expect like with the fiber. And so she had all these different sample packs along with her. And so I bought one, and I told Anna that I was going to do a little giveaway. And so then she threw in another one. And so I'm going to try and pick them up without crinkling them too much. Here's the little sampler packs. And so there are 4 skeins of 4 different breeds of sheep, 25 grams each. Jacob, Corriedale, Shetland, and Targhee. And then Jacob, Corriedale, Rambouillet, and Targhee. And so I'm going to give away a book and a little sampler pack, and then also the other sampler pack. And then I have my book for myself. And then I bought myself some big skeins. So which ones were these? Jacob and Targhee. I've knit with Targhee before from Long Way Homestead, and just like I held the Targhee with mohair, and I just like made the squishiest, most lovely cowl. And so that's why I wanted some more Targhee. And one of the things that she talked about is like the process of creating yarn that comes straight from the back of the sheep. It's not heavily processed. There are bits of hay in the yarn sometimes that you need to pick out or not. And she was saying that just reminds you of like, this is a real material that came from a real animal that was cared for by real people. And yes, there's little bits of hay in some of this yarn. So anyways, that's my little giveaway for you guys to continue to support the Canadian wool industry, and hopefully aspire 2 of you, I guess, to also be excited about the Canadian wool industry. So subscribe to my channel and make a comment that has the word wool in it, and that's what I will use to find a giveaway. And so then next time I will share who's won these, and I'm happy to ship them wherever. And so if you're Canadian, like great, you can have some Canadian wool. But hey, if you're from Australia, you have cool wool there too. But I will also send you some Canadian wool. Or if you're from the United States, I think that's where most of my watchers are from. It's like those 3 places. But anyways, just to like do the thing that's like about giveaways, that's like, I don't think the bots will find me, but just in case they do, like, last time I gave stuff away, I did comment on your comment saying like, hey, great, you won, which like, I think now is like, that's what the bots do. Like I wasn't supposed to do that. So I will announce it on my next episode. And so you'll have to come back to the next episode if you find out if you won the yarn. And then on that episode, I will give you my email address and you can send me an email and we can connect. And I can send you some lovely Canadian wool. Last thing to show you. Are you ready? I have tea towels to show you. This was my first like big project. And so it's taken me quite a few months to actually do it, partly because I would like go in spurts where I would like weave a whole bunch and then I wouldn't weave for like 3 weeks. And then I would like weave a whole bunch and then stop and like whatever, which is fine. I have so many different like creative making things that I get to do. And I like so happy that I get to do all of those things. Like it's fine. It took me a little while. It took me longer than it needed to. I could have gotten all of the weaving done within like a couple of days if I just did that. But I made some tea towels. I had gone to a store here in Edmonton called Gather Textiles, and they're a weaving store. They do classes. They have an online course that I signed up for. It's been very good. And they also sell like weaving materials and stuff. And so I had bought some stuff to make this set of tea towels. This was one of their patterns. There are definitely a lot of weaving patterns, but for the most part, I feel like the vibe is much more like you design your own thing. So this might not be true. This is what I have come across so far. Weaving books will have sample, they're called a draft. And so it's like what the pattern would be, but they wouldn't tell you necessarily like, okay, you need 60 strands of this color and you need 60 strands of this color and then you need 10 of this color. Like they wouldn't tell you that about like how to actually like design your project. I felt like I needed somebody to tell me what to do. And so that's why I bought a pattern, and it has all the information about like exactly, you know, how long it was going to be, like how much I had to measure out, exactly how to lay out the colors so you got what you wanted. It gave you an example of like doing the first one, and then for the other ones, you know, you weave for a certain length and then that'll be like, okay, that's towel number 1. You put in a little bit of scrap yarn, and then for the next ones, it was kind of like, no, you can do what you want kind of thing. So that's what I did. So let me find the first one. Ta-da! So when this is on the loom, it's going this direction. And so I had a whole bunch of dark blue and then alternating blue and beige. That's like what the whole length of my, it's called a warp, was. And then you change the colors based on which ones you go across this way. And so this one I did the actual like 4 quadrant thing, like the pattern with like the beige and then the dark blue. But then all the rest of them, I did something a little bit different. I also made a mistake while I was setting up my loom. And so I ended up changing. So it was supposed to look like this. You kind of see like little circles. Mine did not. It looked like this, because I had made a mistake when I was threading it. And so I fiddled around with a program that you could like put in different options about like, there's so many, yeah, I don't know how much to dive into this. Depending on how you thread it initially, and then depending on how you tie up which petals do what, they're called treadles, but like which ones do what, changes what your pattern looks like when you like start to weave. And so I fiddled around with that, came up with a different tie up, which changes which threads get lifted at what time, so that I could make the pattern that it was actually supposed to be. And so it's still a little bit different, I think, than it. No, it's right. It might still be a little bit different, but it was more what I was looking for. So anyways, so then I wove one the same colors, but with the proper pattern. So that was number 2. And then I had this light blue color, and so I wove with the beige and then light blue instead of dark blue. And so then in this section, you get to see more of the pattern. So that was fun. And then I decided this was supposed to be my last one, and I decided to do some fun stripes. And so it's just like the solid blue up here, and then here I used all 3 colors, which while I was weaving this, I wasn't sure I liked the light blue with it, but then once I took it off and like washed it and stuff, I decided actually I really like it. And so that was my last one. And then it was supposed to have length for 4 towels. I had a little bit of length left, and so I kept going. And then this one's just a little bit shorter. And then I kind of just like had some random colors. I almost used up all of the, well, I ended up using up all of the dark blue that I had bought. So I just wove the dark blue until I ran out, just to like use up the rest of the warp. I wanted to like use as much as I could before I cut it off. And yeah, I did this whole towel in an hour. Most of them are like, these ones are, they're supposed to be 34 inches long, and this one is obviously a bit shorter. But I wove the like this whole thing in an hour. It shouldn't have taken me 3 months to weave all of these, but whatever, it's fine. But then I got to cut it off, and I zigzagged the edges, like the beginning and the end, washed it. It's 100% cotton. This is what the cones look like. So this is a half pound cone, not anymore because it's like half gone, but it's very fine. One day I will share with you all of my other spreadsheet that I have about all the different weaving materials and stuff, and it's just like such a different system than is used for knitting yarns. And so I wanted to like wrap my head around more of like, you know, how many meters per 100 grams is this? And so I made myself a spreadsheet that shows me all of that. But anyways, so yeah, 100% cotton. And so I just like washed it, and it just like, it gets so like drapey, and it's squishy, and it's soft. And I immediately hemmed them because I just wanted to get them done. And so that was like, probably that's like the normal thing that people would do. They're like, oh good, I finished my project, let me hem it. But it's kind of like the cats have found me. Ah, come on. Oh my goodness. Okay. It's kind of like having to weave in ends after you're done knitting, right? It's like, oh, I'm done, but like, oh, I'm not quite done yet. So I immediately hemmed them, and that was like 2 days ago. And now I've showed them off, and now they can get put to use. And so it maybe feels a little bit weird to use something for drying your hands in the kitchen, or for drying dishes, or for like, I don't think I would use them to like wipe up messes, but maybe I will. But like, because it's just like this beautiful fabric that I made with my own 2 hands. And also I feel like what a special thing to like bring joy to everyday life, to like have these beautiful textiles that I made. Like it feels so magical to me. When I did the weaving class at Fern School of Craft, like the studio there has hand woven stuff everywhere. So like there's like nice rugs all over the place, their little kitchenette in the bathroom, like they have towels like these, tons of like stuff hung up on the walls. And like it was so beautiful. Like it made me so happy. And I am so delighted to have this hanging in my kitchen for me to dry my hands with. Like it's just, I'm so excited about it. So, yes, I'm just delighted, basically. So they took many hours. Probably 50% of the time of actually like weaving these was setting up the loom. And I'd be interested to actually like time it out next time. Every time I do it, I will get better at it, because it is quite a process. Like there's quite a few steps to do, and like to do things in a certain order. And I messed that up a couple times, and obviously doing it more and more will help me remember how to do it, and it'll go smoother the next time. It doesn't help if I worked this in May, I'm pretty sure, and I like did not write notes. I should also do that. And so will I remember anything? Probably not. But that class the online class from Gather Textiles, is nice because it just like has a nice clear video that like walks you through all the steps that you need, and like shares lots of tips about troubleshooting things, or like watch out for this. And I found that really helpful. And yeah, so it's done. I'm really excited about it. Can you tell? I think that my next project is going to be a blanket, just because I want to. I think I mentioned before that yarn that I got, the, what was it called? Kelburn Woolens? I think that's what it was. I'd mentioned that maybe I will use that to make a blanket. So I need to do the math because again, it's like, I don't think I could find a pattern that's like, hey, using this exact weight of yarn and this amount of yardage, you know, here's what you do to make your blanket. Like I have to figure out some of those things myself. And so I just need to do that. So I think that'll be what's next. We'll see. But I'm very proud of these. So glad that I get to show them off to you. Okay. This whole process of filming this today has taken me like 3 hours because of all of my technological issues. But I think I'm finally done now. Apologies if it's a little bit scattered today. You can follow me on Instagram. I'm at paper.knits on Instagram. You can find me on Ravelry as This Is Paper Knits. You can subscribe to my YouTube channel and comment wool and then be entered to win some lovely Canadian wool. And I think that's everything for today. So thanks for joining me. And I'll catch you next time. Happy knitting. Bye.